it'd be a good time to send you an email.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you again for joining us. I see that my wife is actually in the chat, and I want to thank her for all of her hard work. The intro that you watch when we come into these shows and on my videos are all done by her, even though I will take pure credit for doing it. My wife, Pities Go Stripping, is here on her lunch break as she works hard every single day, not only to help me, but also to take care of our home. So I'm going to give her a big shout out and a big thank you for doing that. And everybody, you will be seeing her most likely on a members only live on Sunday, and then hopefully again Monday evening live. So you guys will get to see the beauty over the ugliness that I showcase for all of you. But I do want to say thank you, and I see that she's interacting with all of you. But here we are again, ladies and gentlemen, and I've got my team back here with me. My good friend and sister in Swamp Rose, Miss Kiki, is with us. And also my brother in trouble, Robert, with his True Crime Unraveled channel. And here we gather to talk more true crime. Hey, guys, welcome.
Welcome. I mean, thank you. Yeah, you got a very good chat going tonight, brother.
So far, it's growing, and I hope that we continue to grow a little bit more. And just to let everybody know, Kiki is with us. She does mute herself from time to time. I think she's having a little conversation behind the scenes. There she is. Never mind.
Oh, it's so good to be back. Thank you for having the show tonight and having Robert and I back on panel. There's just so much to talk about and so many new documents. So it's great that we're doing another live tonight and just catching up on everything. And I saw the chat too. It's so nice to see everybody. The chat is already live, and just wanted to say welcome to everybody.
Most definitely. I want to thank everybody for being here. And I appreciate everybody that's here on my channel. If you can hit a thumbs up for me, give me a little bit of a liking, but also venture over to the other channels. Both Kiki and Robert would truly appreciate your love and support, as would I, as we work on this as a team. We work very hard. These two individuals that work alongside me are determined. They are always working hard, and I'm so appreciative of that because I can be lazy with all of their hard work. So thank you to the both of you guys.
You're welcome, brother.
Aaron, thank you for all your hard work and leadership. We really do appreciate it.
Yes, we do.
I mean, I guess we should be honest and let the crowd know this is kind of a spur of the moment. We didn't know whether we were going to do it. We didn't know whether we were not going to do it. We were either going to watch movies and relax, or we were going to hop on here and just go all out with no idea what we were going to talk about, but we'll make it up as we go, and we'll make it interesting, and we'll have fun doing it, because you know what? That's what the Idaho 4 case is all about, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
The Idaho 4 case, at least for me, because I stumbled into this podcast, there is a massive part of community that comes to me, because I don't know if I'd even understand this case if it wasn't for the surrounding community. I was just having a conversation with one of my researchers, Mikey, tonight, and I was like, when I first started reading these legal documents, it was almost like reading another language. It's easy for me to read them now, but the way they structured them, it was just all new to me. And so I have to say, it feels like a community to me. So I agree with that, actually.
And, I've had to learn something through years and years of experience of going through the court process and the things of that nature. Every time they write a document or a motion to the court, it doesn't matter whether it's actually the defense or if it's the prosecution, they make sure only 2% of the people across the board even know what the heck they're trying to say. And me sitting there as a defendant, I was determined to figure out the lingo that are used in these documents. I literally would study my butt off, both while I was incarcerated in jail and even when I got to the penitentiary. I was determined to figure out what these things meant. And then I realized the other day when I'm looking at the Idaho summary and I'm beginning to go through the different, limine motions to the court, and I started talking about the demonstrative part of that, of one of those motions, and I called it the demonstrative. So literally, I got to go back to school, ladies and gentlemen. I got to go figure this back out. I would just rather not do it in the penitentiary.
I'm actually amazed that you could teach yourself how to read. I mean, I'm not, you know what I mean? Like it must have taken a long time, because it really took a lot of coaching for me to, and also to know what is kind of just like standard legal speak, and what is actually like a clue or a hint as to what the prosecution or the defense is saying. That was interesting to me, because a lot of the standard writing in there, you don't really realize. I don't know if anyone else can relate to what I'm saying in the chat, but as a layman, some of that standard writing you think is part of the actual.
Well, the crazy
think of a few,
thing
like,
about it, right?
I was just going to say, like, alternative suspects and stuff like that. Sometimes these things are just standard legal jargon, and you think that they're actually a clue,
Right. Robert would know this. I was actually deemed like a penitentiary lawyer because I was the one that was willing to go get the books that were necessary to get the terminology to file motions to the court, file motions to the penitentiary administration themselves. So most people that were fighting their case from behind the scenes in the penitentiary or in jail, I was filing all their motions and doing most of the work for them until they were able to get an actual appointed attorney. And most times that would take a very long time to happen. So I've helped people fight their cases for years, getting them in front of judges, getting certain things, to be ruled upon within the court. So I learned a lot by doing that. By no means am I a lawyer, but I sure learned how to pick up the proper books and the documents that were necessary within the law libraries to be able to pen those things out and get things to happen. So very interesting stuff.
Yeah, it sounds very interesting, brother.
Made good money too. People paid
Really?
me well. I did. I made good money. I did.
You're like a paralegal in the jail.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, literally I was able to help people find and reach out to different types of attorneys and different things to help them with their cases. And if necessary, if a time crunch was coming up to where you only have a certain amount of time to get documentation in to meet that quota of time, I was able to actually get it directly to the judge or the court clerk itself, and then get everything moving from there so that they would have the time to get a lawyer. So I'm okay versed, but you know what, still with the writings and the way that these documents are written, it can still be very confusing, and it takes a lot of effort, a lot of knowledge from a various surrounding amount of people. And I'm glad that you guys have that to work with you, your researchers and the people that help you. Because it can get difficult, and it can get confusing, and then it can get frustrating, and then you just don't even want to dive in anymore at times. So,
and most importantly, you just want to give the correct and accurate information to your audience. So it does take a lot of work behind the scenes. I don't even know if people realize like how much research we actually do, but we do it because we want to give, the best quality content to you guys. So.
I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. I'm fortunate. My younger brother, from my adoptive family, he for many of years was the head prosecuting attorney for the state of New Mexico, and then from there he transitioned into a federal prosecutor, and then moved up even higher than that. And now he owns his own law firm, and he does many different things within his law firm outside now of criminal law. But I come from a very well-educated prosecutorial side of people within my family. And I'm probably the first one that's ever been on the defendant side.
Wow. Some good resources to pull from.
They were, when they were talking to me, they definitely were, most definitely. So, Robert, I know you had a couple of thoughts in your mind, because we'll transition, Kiki, and I know you probably have points that you would like to make tonight that are on the top of your head through your research team as well. as I also have a topic I would like to venture into. But Robert, you and I were kind of discussing, because early this morning you directed me to some new documents that haven't quite released all the information yet, but they're on the case summary, which points right directly at a victim's family. I mean, if you'd like to kind of give your ideas and thoughts, I can pull up the case summary so people can see what we're talking about here, and then you can kind of surmise some of your feelings, and that way we let Swamp Rose get her feet settled, and she'll be ready to go here in a minute too. So
Yes, the case summary was it, and I believe it was about Stephen Christie Gonzalez, because it was comments about how that they made about the death penalty and the firing squad. Now, I'm not sure if they're going to be banned from the court, or if the prosecution is the ones that's bringing this. Because if the prosecution is the ones that's bringing this, that's kind of stabbing Stephen Christie in the back. So what I'm thinking is possibly the defense is bringing it up because of some of their comments about Brian and the media, especially about the death penalty and the firing squad, and then showing up with death penalty T-shirts on. So that's just my assumption is that it's the defense trying to get them banned because of their behavior. And don't forget, they're the ones that was doing their own jury surveys in the streets of Latah County. So that's probably one of the reasons why the change venue was put in, because they did their own jury survey. So. Yeah, right there. Motion in Lamine, immediate family members in courtroom states, that could be the state. Subject document motion to redact or seal newly filed. Immediate family members in courtroom. Improper death penalty comments. So that makes me wonder if they're being banned possibly, or they're being told they can't speak no more to the media about what's going on, because this is not Judge's courtroom anymore. This is Judge Hippler's courtroom, and Judge Hippler is more than likely the one that's getting a little bit irritated seeing the victim's family on TV making these comments about the death penalty and about the firing squad. And I mean, what are your thoughts, brother, on that?
So first, I want to preface what I have to say is obviously everybody knows I'm not going to say anything in the manner of trying to be disrespectful. When I speak upon this is directly based upon what I feel as though the prosecution or the defense is filing and the reasons why they would be filing it. So I'm not attacking any type of victims' families or anything of that nature. However, I will make a very clear statement regarding this. If this is truly a victim's family, which obviously it's pretty clear that it is, we all kind of have the idea why and who this would be based upon their own actions. I'm sorry, but if you decide to showcase your feelings in a manner of wearing clothing that represents the penalty, the big penalty when it comes to a case like this, and I'm only saying that because I don't want to get somebody docking me on YouTube again for saying a word or a terminology I'm not supposed to. But we're going to say the big penalty for Bryan Kohberger that everybody knows. You don't need to showcase it. We all know why we're in the courtroom. We know why we're watching what we are. We all care very much about justice within this case and for the families. But it's very clear, in my opinion, Robert, and I'm not trying to disagree with you, this is the actual prosecution filing these because they do not want the defense, Ann Taylor and Bryan Kohberger, to be able to bring in that pushing of a narrative theory at trial. They want to keep this as I guess PG rated as possible and keep it directed totally at Bryan Kohberger and at what's going on in that court. And they don't want it to stray out in regards to a narrative. One of the reasons why I point at narrative is because we know the minute that Bryan Kohberger was arrested, it's been clear as day that Bill Thompson started pointing at that PCA like it was the Holy Grail and told everybody far and wide to believe in what that very document said. Come to find out, not everything in that document's real and true, but it opened a can of worms to build upon a narrative. Well, one of the greatest additions to that narrative is an upset family that's not getting the very information that they need to feel comfortable that justice for their loved one is being served. They begin going to the media and pushing a narrative. Remember, they hired a private investigator. They have a lawyer representing them. So they began speaking, and that, they really haven't stopped. They've been very vocal. They've been very visual. And now I think the prosecution's doing all it can to try to keep that narrative out of this courtroom, because the defense is going to try to utilize that. How do you feel, Kiki? I mean, does it kind of rhyme any reason in one way or the other to you?
Well, the one thing, first off, all the speculations that both of you have made, I mean, if this is just about one set of parents, I have to agree with you, because it's just the clothing alone that they wore would think that would completely influence a jury. Emotionally, it would affect a jury just to read the parents of the victims supporting the case like that and wearing those shirts. But my question to all of you, and maybe to the chat if you guys don't know, is this statement to ban all immediate family members from the courtroom, or is this for a specific set?
So let me make this clear real quick. There is nothing here that we know knowledgeably at all that this is about banning anybody from any courtroom. If that's the case, we're going to get really deep down into some really legal stuff that's going to happen. I mean, just kind of imagine what's going to happen if Steve and Christy get the news that they're banned from the courtroom based upon, things. What I want people to literally focus in on, it's not so much the immediate family members in the courtroom, and it's not the one above that again says immediate family members in the courtroom. Really focus on that third highlighted one where it's a filed record, the sealed state's motion for improper death penalty comments. So when you look at that, you intertwine that into the first two levels of this, it's really going to give you an idea where they're going, because who is legitimately the one group of individuals that are directly speaking death penalty. It's not coming from Bryan Kohberger's family. We haven't heard the Chaplin family come out and really just bang on the death penalty. We haven't heard from the Mogans, the Kernoodles, and I probably said that wrong because I'm tired, but Xana's parents have not come out and clearly talked about the death penalty, because her mom, Kara, doesn't even believe in the death penalty. But also the father and the sister have been very distant from anything visually. So we kind of can put, I would hope, 2 and 2 together here and know where this is coming from, especially considering we've all seen the footage of the T-shirts walking into the courtroom very long ago, wearing death penalty shirts.
So could they actually impose a dress code in the courtroom?
Absolutely, and they will. They absolutely will. If you already look at the Idaho court, let me see if I can actually pull it up while we're talking. They already have a dress code in the Ada County Court. So let me see if I can find that real quick, and we'll go over that. If you guys just want to speak about your opinions real fast, I'm going to look for that real fast.
Okay, that sounds good. So So Robert, if they were if they already have a dress code, you know what kind of surprises me is that they don't have a dress code that bans like political statements or a statement like this
Yeah.
that involves sentencing. You know what I mean? Like, because technically you
Yeah.
could write a shirt that says, please convict this guy, or please, you know, a parent could say, please sentence this. They could send a message to a jury member. I would think that there's something about graphic tees that would already be in the verbiage of the dress code. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think if they were to walk in during the trial, with the jury present wearing these death penalty T-shirts, that would, I believe, would cause an uproar in the courtroom. And knowing how Hitler is a stickler, he would more than likely have the jury leave the courtroom when they came in wearing the death penalty T-shirts.
Yeah, I don't think that, and I think that there's probably something in there. I wonder why they had to write this in here, just because maybe it hasn't been enforced in the past, I would think. Oh, wait, somebody, Swamp, your little 7-minute video was interesting. I heard it today. Let's AR about it. I gotta look. Oh, the 7-minute one talked about the 4chan. You know, I had 4 videos. I just haven't finished editing the other 2. Thank you so much for saying something. Robert, did you release a couple videos today too, right?
Yes, yes. I released a video earlier. I can't remember the name of it now.
It's been a long 24 hours.
But yeah, it would. Yeah, I named it corruption or incompetence in the Idaho 4 case, and it was basically just talking about various different stuff going on in the Idaho 4 case.
It's good to do a catch up like that.
And there was some talk of the IGG and what Brett Payne. Yeah, there was some talk of the IGG and what Brett Payne said about the they didn't want to upload the unknown DNA because they didn't want to lose the DNA off the precious knife sheath. And I came up with an alternate scenario in the video. They could always have re-uploaded the DNA off the knife sheath. Like do that last. And I don't think that's a proper investigation. If you have unknown male DNA B and D way before you had Brian Kohberger's name, why wouldn't you upload those?
It doesn't make any sense. If you
already had the knife sheath DNA uploaded, because these were blood DNA. This wasn't touch DNA.
To me, this is what it sounds like. If that's the case, then does that mean that our criminal justice system can't solve crimes but have multiple perps? Because is that what they're saying? Because that's the way it appears by the language that they use. If necessary, we'll test. Well, is this true that at crime scenes, they oftentimes find multiple perpetrators, but only hone in on one, hoping to snatch the other ones? I think that we have a big problem in our society if that's potentially the truth, that a lot of homicides have perpetrators walking the streets because we can't upload a second sample to CODIS.
And I'm back with you guys. I got frustrated trying to find that. I mean, I'll kind of give you guys an idea. If you're dressed inappropriately, they will not let you in the courtroom. And if you are let into the courtroom and the judge deems you as inappropriate, they have every right to remove you from the courtroom. If anything like that happened at Judge Hippler's courtroom, where he sees anybody wearing that type of inappropriate attire, he would remove them. Beginning, first one would be for the day. Second time, you'd be done for the whole trial. So with this actually coming in as a motion, I'm sorry to cut you guys off. I know you guys are right in the middle of a good conversation there. But if Hippler now is going to have to hear this motion of limine at the hearing, April 9th, and then he sees something happen the first day of trial, he'll ban them, he'll throw them out, and that'll be it. I mean, he could legitimately tell them right now, and it would cause one of the biggest uproars you would ever see, that he's not going to allow them in the actual courtroom, that he'll deem a side room where they can watch from a side room outside of the courtroom. I think that that would set off fires, and I don't think that would be a good way of doing that. So it's obviously, I was looking at the document, and it is prosecution side that filed those motions. That's not from the defense. We were going to kind of, talk about if that was coming from the defense as to why it would be, but that's mute. It's from the prosecution. It's not from the defense. So,
Well, Aaron,
sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's actually just to build on what you're saying. Quick question for you then. So just being familiar with the dress code, I was saying to Robert, I'm surprised that the dress code doesn't include like no political statements, no lettered teeth.
Yeah, most cases you can't wear any of that. I mean, they do understand that not everybody is a suit wearer or dresses up, in the most professional of attire, and they're going to give some leeway to that, but they will never give leeway to anything that comes in with some sort of crazy writing on it. Like if I walked in wearing my logoed hat for my YouTube channel saying "The Convict's Thoughts," they would ask me to remove that and take that off. Whereas if I walked in with something that said Polo on it or something like that, they probably wouldn't have as big of a fit about that. But they want you typically to be presentable, because this is a court of law, and this is, an important event for so many that they know there's going to be cameras and everything there. Robert, I don't know in your cases if you ever had anything that had the media following, or the news all around it, to where
mine cases were my cases were not.
Yeah, I've been in cases that literally had media all the way around.
Yeah, my
corner
cases were nothing
waiting.
like this, brother.
Yeah, no, I've been involved in some very high profile cases that, they metal detectored you. You had to turn in your keys to your vehicle on the way in the door. You couldn't even keep them in your pocket if you were in the crowd, because they were afraid of somebody from the crowd jumping in and attacking a defendant. There was so much that went into some of these cases I was involved in. It wasn't always me. It was just other defendants that I was, involved in, that just always brought issues. And I see JB says, glad that the Gonzalez could wear the outfits that they chose to do. And I guarantee you that's not going to be able to be done when you get into the Ada County courthouse with Judge Hippler, and it'll be wiped off the whole thought process before we can get to that, and everybody will be notified of what you could wear. And if you make any noise in the courtroom, raising your voice, trying to talk to anybody, trying to yell out, you're gone. This is high profile. This case with Bryan Kohberger is going to be very interesting, very, very interesting to watch. As we have silence. Is anybody still with me?
Well, yeah. I was just thinking we should probably go like Robert speaks and I speak, like we go clockwise or something. I was looking at the chat just to see, because there were so many good comments, and let's see, there was one I saw one from Batshit Crazy I wanted to read. Oh, okay. Well, we'll start with musical contestant. The PCA is going to prove to be a problem. Question is Judge Hippler mentally equipped to handle the courtroom and refrain from being prejudiced and biased? I have a massive doubts. So I don't know. Like, I'll start off, I guess, just sorry, coughing. Just saying something about this. One of the things that kind of is getting to me when I'm talking about Judge Hippler and his fairness, I was having a discussion, like really like getting down to a good discussion regarding the DNA evidence today. And I think for me, I always thought that when you got to court, like I always thought when they got to court, they'd have everything. like they'd be able to answer questions about the chain of custody, for instance, of the DNA. The not just like the chain of custody of the people who collected the evidence, but literally the chain of custody at the lab. Like, who held the raw samples and handed them off to Authoron? Who uploaded the files to the private websites when they did? You know, I thought, excuse me, I'm sorry, let me turn off the camera. I thought that we would have all of that by court, you know, and so that it would be a non-argument. Like, we wouldn't have to listen to the defense on the stand argue the legitimacy of IgG or DNA or the process. But because we didn't have a Franks hearing with all these questions, which essentially were evidence not handed over, like up to the 23rd supplemental request for discovery, this evidence was never handed over. So we're never going to find out. That's what it feels like to me. And it is bringing in this reasonable doubt to me. It's like, okay, so we're not going to see the handling of these, the chain of custody. We're not going to see if the lab was equipped, if their machines were calibrated, if they were, if they were accredited. I don't get it. So we don't get to see that. So it's just Ann Taylor's job to tell the whole world about the process of Touch DNA. And then it looks like her arguments might be illegitimate because they didn't allow the Franks hearing to review the information. I don't know, just giving you my thoughts, because I always thought the judge was going to grant this Franks hearing because it would prevent litigation in the future. So anyway, that's my non-professional take on things, and probably a long-winded response, but I'd love to hear you guys' insight on anything I said.
Robert, what's your thoughts on that question?
I'd like to say thank you to Jackie Bushabell for the $9.99 super chat on my side. Yeah, thank you, Jackie.
Oh,
that's awesome. Thank you, Jackie. Very nice of you.
Thank you for the blessing, Jackie.
Yeah, so I totally missed the question.
No, that's fine. I'll pose it to a question like you. So we never got the discovery that apparently the defense has been requesting regarding the IgG, the chain of custody, and everything. Do you think that, and now if Ann Taylor wants to question this, there was no Franks hearing reviewing that, so it's just her speculation or cross-examination on the stand questioning the process. Do you think that I don't know, this raises reasonable doubt to me, not having those records, not showing those things now with what I know about touch transfer DNA. I don't know. Just thoughts on the fact that we're not going to know any of that information, it looks like, for trial. I'm not being clear.
Are you talking about chain of custody?
Yes.
You're talking about chain of custody, right?
Custody.
I mean, it shocks me that there's like no chain of custody. Going from ISP to Othram to the FBI, there's like no chain of custody. And of course, the FBI did what it did in the dark. So, if there's no chain of custody, I don't understand why this judge it didn't grant the suppression motion, because I feel just like my brother AR feels, he's a pro law enforcement judge. And I believe the same thing you do, brother. He walked the defense into a trap. By complaining that it was one of the motions was over 2,000 pages, so they trimmed it down to 1,000 pages, and he still denied all the motions. I believe like you believe that he walked them into the trap, and then once they did what he wanted them to do, he made the excuse that it wasn't it wasn't fact-based enough.
I mean, to kind of throw in with you, Robert, and Swamp, in regards to this, I think all of us are so used to, in our minds, when we think DNA, we think chain of custody, we think about the process, and we think about all of that being laid out before our eyes so that we best understand it. But what you have to understand in cases like this, what we don't know right now is all because of pre-trial. when we get to the actual trial and these experts have to take the stand, and trust me, there's going to be more experts than what we've seen that were just called at these Frank's, motions. These are going to be legitimate experts are going to talk about the entire process from their point of view. Now it's going to be up to Ann Taylor in the cross-examination to try to tear that down and break it apart to show that there was missteps and that there's just a whole issue within the process. But right now, because we haven't seen the entirety of it based upon the experts, because the experts, I mean, it's crazy how they allow them to do it. And it's happened to me in cases before. They come in last minute with all of their information that they're going to testify to. And that's not a part of the discoverable evidence. The discoverable evidence is the evidence that was allowing them to get to the point that they are. And then the experts explain that to the jury. And I know that sounds crazy. It doesn't feel fair, but this is the way that it works. And I've been in this situation before where I've literally walked into my own trial going, how did they even get to the conclusion that my fingerprints were at the crime scene? They just told me they had my fingerprints. They told me the tests that they ran, but they didn't tell me the whole process. And then the experts, when you get to trial, really put on the show for the jurors. And it's up to the jurors to listen to both sides, the defense and the prosecution, and make a determination on whether that makes sense to them and it holds value, or if there's reasonable doubt in the way that it was handled. Could there potential be, contamination? Could there be anything that goes into that? And that's why I think it's so key. And I see people commenting on it. The defense brought Barlow onto this, and she jumped on this too. This wasn't just the defense asking her. She wanted to be a part of this, and she's been a part of it from the beginning. She thinks she's going to tear this apart. And I give her a good chance of doing so because she might be the very best at this. So her voice is going to matter to that jury. Not only as an attorney questioning the state's experts, but then also the type of experts that will come along with her to explain this process. So, I mean, I understand the question when they're talking about, the PCA is going to prove to be a problem. Guys, the PCA is gone. The PCA is no longer a problem. The PCA is no longer a part of this case. It's already gone through the whole mess of the Franks and everything and all the suppression and everything based right upon this PCA. It's why the defense was absolutely attacking this PCA is they wanted it thrown out to get the arrest warrant and all the evidence thereafter thrown out. And guess what? None of it happened. We sit here today. We move forward with the evidence against Bryan Kohberger, and the PCA means absolutely nothing at this point. Guess what? It won't even be talked about at trial. It will never be mentioned, and it won't be talked about.
Looks like we lost Robert.
And Robert decided to leave me out. But just based off of my answer to that, he said, the heck with this. I'm out of here, dude.
I mean, I think the chat was spot on. Well, I'm not really reading the chat, but I think what you just said from the chat, I didn't see it, but you mentioned that Becca Barlow coming on the case. Well, that kind of answers what I was saying. Yeah, it does look like Ann Taylor is going to have to fight this. Hey, Robert. And Becca Barlow's probably, that's what her tool is. So I want to bring this up, if that's the question. Somebody that we only heard from at the beginning of the case, who was most likely asked to not speak of it again, was Gabriela Vargas. And what was her grievance? It was the changing of the profiles. There was an issue she had with the profiles, right? She kept bringing that up. There was an argument. The reason I know about this is because I've been on DTS, and DTS brought the segment up between her and Lana on several occasions. And so I'm only bringing that up because because we don't really know with this case, gag sealed and redacted, what all the evidence is, but knowing that particular expert that worked on the case had a grievance there, that's probably where we're going to start looking. And then it just brings us back to the chain of custody of this DNA and how the raw samples were handled. Who had the raw samples? Was it the FBI or was it Othram? I don't know. Just anybody know? I mean, the 23 supplemental motions for requests for discovery were all related to this IgG. And now knowing Bickett Barlow's coming on and just knowing we had that other expert coming in right at, we lost him again. I was talking to him. Robert is out of here. You're muted, AR. It's contagious. I'm sorry.
I am muted. I was over here yelling at myself. I think he's having internet issues is what's going on. I'm not sure. But, I want to answer this question real quick, and then I'll kind of respond to what you're saying in regards to, the IgG and stuff like that. That's still all going to be able to be talked about at trial. That's going to be a major part of the trial. But at the end of the day, and Robert's going to come on, he's going to blast us right here. Ready? Here we go. The thing about it.
Sorry,
and
Yard kicked me out.
Welcome back.
So Bray Silva says, really? So DM's part in the PCA won't be brought up? Look, the PCA is not going to be brought up. Dylan is going to have to testify, and they're going to directly ask her questions. The prosecution's going to ask their questions based upon what she saw, what she heard, what she knows, and then the defense is going to cross-examine. They're not going to go back and tear apart a PCA. They're going to directly examine her at that very moment, and they're going to try to catch her up in lies. And then the minute she starts stumbling, they're going to say, okay, well, we have these transcripts from your 4 interviews. That's what's going to be utilized, the 4 interviews, not the PCA. And they're going to say, you said X, Y, and Z during these interviews. Why is your story different now? So there's going to be a lot that goes back and forth within that. But just realize the PCA has been fought out. It's been attacked. The prosecution says it's irrelevant. The defense lost every motion possible arguing that PCA. It's time to move forward. And now they start actually doing what they need to do, and that's prepare for the trial and prepare for the testimony and the questions based upon that testimony.
Okay. Guys, just give me a minute. I'm fixing something the chat is telling me about right now. So I had this the chat I see your concerns and we'll take care of that right now. So keep going, guys. Just give me a minute. I'm doing something on my end.
Is there something I need to help with too, or is it?
No, I'll tell it in the back chat. We're all good.
If anybody thinks I'm just not that pretty, trust me, we all agree. It's not an argument. We don't have to argue about it. We could just move on. Robert, so kind of your feeling, I mean, in regards to what we've been talking about, you cut out right in the middle of your feelings. So why don't you jump in?
Yeah, my StreamYard decided to boot me off. But yeah, I was like right in the middle of my discussion, and all of a sudden, just on my end, it goes, sorry, error with StreamYard. Bye.
Well, I mean, it does happen.
I've been saying this from day one. I mean, she's gonna get like torn apart by Ann Taylor once she gets on the stand, and like that the screenshot I sent you today of the model of the house that they're going to be rolling out in the courtroom. It's just not. I'm sorry, it's just not the same. And they're going to try to. I don't know if they're going to use like little dolls in place of everyone in the house. Everyone in the house that day. My daughter looked at the house on my phone. She goes, "Daddy, is that a Barbie house?" I'm like, "No, that's not a Barbie house." And she goes, "Oh, well, it looks like a Barbie house." And well, I didn't want to explain to her exactly what it was for. I'm like, okay, but
you're talking about
3D rendering.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, what'd you think when you saw it, brother, when I sent you that screenshot?
I've been in trials that utilize them, so I know exactly how they're used. So they don't affect me in any bit, other than it's going to affect the jury in a big way. Um, Whoever claims that doesn't affect a jury and the feel and the thought process, and in a crime like this, I mean, they're wrong. I've been in the courtroom with juries that are looking at these model demonstrations saying, yeah, this doesn't give us what we need. I don't know what it sounds like. I don't know what it feels like. I don't know how far away a wall legitimately feels when I'm standing in a room. Now, and I was watching a live earlier where some other creators were discussing, the thought process that you can't walk a jury through that devastating of a crime scene. And I agree. I do agree. But I don't feel as though you got to legitimately walk them through it to get the sense and the feel. You could stand them in front of the front door, walk them around the back door, walk them up the hill behind the house, walk them to the parking lot next door, and you get a feel. You don't legitimately have to walk them into the house. So I think it's just another example of how disorganized and improper that this case is being handled within the courtroom.
I'd like to make a comment about the demolition, just since we're on the subject, if you don't mind. I just have a thought, which is like, so the argument about the demolition of the house, we have all of these grievances. It seemed like everybody was against the demolition of the house, including parents, including mainstream media, but they still did it anyway. And so that's one issue. But the other issue is, why so quickly? Like, I could see if this had been years gone by, it would be a deeper argument. But I mean, it was just a couple weeks after 1 year mark. It does seem so rushed. Like, why at the 1 year mark? I mean, I understand it was the change, it was halfway through the year. So they had a bunch of kids coming back after Christmas break, but why do it in the middle of the winter? Why do it while school is open? Why do it only a year later? It puts it casts such a dark shadow over the case. And we just, especially knowing that it's the largest piece of evidence in the largest murder trial in the world, and they just tore it down. I don't know why.
My hand.
Go ahead. Let me ask both of you
That's
an
right.
actual very
Okay.
serious question based on that directly. And I think you have a little bit of a delay, Robert. Hopefully we're not cutting each other off, but a very direct question to that. Do you feel as though when the discussion starts and they're wheeling this thing out on this cart, is there going to be any explanation from the prosecution or the defense to why the crime scene's gone? Or do you think they just avoid it altogether and just go into doing their demonstration, and they're going to feel as though the jury is going to say, oh, it must just be normal, or it's still there, they're not going to question it? I mean, in my opinion, I think somebody's going to question this. Somebody in their mind's going to question this. And what type of answer can you give?
Do you want me to go, or
Well,
Robert?
the only thing I can think about, I've been thinking about this like the last few hours, and I actually addressed it in one of my video today. The only thing I can think of the reason why the university wanted the house torn down, and they were saying is to start the healing process. And no, this murder that happened, this quadruple homicide that happened on their campus or their off-campus home, which was situated on Greek Row. This was a blemish to their university, and we've all heard, they distanced themselves, of their off-campus home. They were killed in their off-campus home, but yet it sits prominently on Greek Row, and that's the only thing I can think of is this quadruple homicide was a blemish to the college, and they're trying to save face by saying that it's a healing process and tearing the house down, when in all actuality they wanted the house gone because it was a blemish to their university.
Well, if I have to put myself in the shoes of the defense, and they didn't object to it, but there are some things that I feel like they could say. Like, first off, there is an argument, and I don't know what's going to happen in like the next 30 days, but I think it's March 23rd marks the day that two of the families, the Laramie and the Chapin family, as far as I understand, reserve the right to bring lawsuit against the university or the town if they found that there was some sort of wrongdoing in this case or the response to this case. There are different things. So essentially, it's the police department and the university, but essentially it means the city. So this house is the largest piece of evidence in this case, but it's also the largest piece of evidence that would be in that case as well. So just digest that for a second. Could that be a reason to tear down the house? And when we talk about wrongdoing, how Ann Taylor might incorporate an argument like that, two things come to mind. And one of them I've actually never really talked about in a video, but one of the suspicious things, and I did see this on Crime Circus like a long time ago, but it's true, is there are clearings that like face that house. I wonder, is there some sort of safety issue? There were like parking spaces with clearings, with clear views in certain homes. It was weird, and it did seem like they were pretty strategic placements. I have questions about that, or is there a question about first responders? Was there something about the situation in the house or who responded? I don't know why they would tear down the house, but I do know that if this lawsuit goes through, certainly the house would be pivotal. And I don't know. I don't know. The other thing I think of is we do hear about a lot of speculation and rumors about drug activity in that area. And I wonder, was there some sort of surveillance going on? And the only thing I could think, it's hard to think what they could be liable for, but we have heard other cities where surveillance was going on, where 911 calls were dropped. And I think that kind of ties into, we had talked a little bit about talking about the 911 call tonight, and I had saved, thought about that. I have a few points on that if you wanted to segue in, but I'll stop talking and throw it back to you guys. Sorry to be so long-winded. I'm very talkative tonight. I don't know why.
No, I'm definitely appreciative of that. I always like it when you share your mind. I urge you to do it, and I urge you to do it, Swamp, and both of you, because I like to hear you guys talk. And just at the end of the day, I think there's going to be so many different excuses to why that house came down. I don't think there's ever going to be a truth told about it. And that's sad because, I do understand some of the families were okay with that coming down and some potentially were not. I think that the family should have come together and fought that a little harder. If all four families had really stood up, I think they could have made a difference. But the biggest issue within that is I believe that the Chapin family has direct, back and forth with the University of Idaho. They've donated actual scholarships, which I think is amazing and great. But I think that them just rolling along with it, like everything's all good, everything's okay, then the state just takes over at that point. If they want to remove it, they'll remove it. So, sadly, it's gone. It's gone. Now they got this model that they think is going to make this big difference at the trial. And legitimately, we'll find out when we get to trial how that jury takes of it. I mean, I've been around these things. They are typically pretty well done, where you can take them apart, you can move them around, you can pass them hand to hand, people can look at them. But I mean, it's kind of like the drawer to your dresser. You take it out of your dresser and you pass it around. You never know what the feel of the actual dresser is that housed that drawer. So, I mean, it is what it is. And I do want to say hello to Tella to Ellie. Welcome to the chat, Purple Smurf, and many people joining us here. I see our numbers are going up a little bit. That's probably because the view hog over there, Miss Swamp Rose, has ushered them over here. No, but we definitely
condense the streams.
Well, we're definitely appreciative of everybody being here. That's awesome, and thank you. But I mean, to kind of take that, because I mean that's kind of a side off of where I think I was unprepared for that discussion. It kind of came out of nowhere. I didn't know we were going to jump into that one. It's a great combo, but Kiki, I think you also kind of had some points of emphasis that have been getting into your mind the last few days. Do you have one of those that you want to jump into and just create a conversation about and see where it flows to? And then we'll flow into mine here in a little bit.
Gosh, you catch me off guard. I didn't know. Well, okay, so I'll give my talking point, because somebody mentioned I did a 7-minute video earlier today, and I'll just give my talking point because I've kind of memorized it by now, so I can kind of say it from my heart, which is a timeline issue. So I'm going to speak like this. I am confused about the timeline when it comes to the prosecution going for Bryan Kohberger, because the defense kept saying they have no idea how the prosecution found Bryan Kohberger. And they said this for 2 years. And then in December, we see in a document that the Jay Logsdon is proclaiming that the prosecution found Bryan Kohberger on the 19th of December via investigative genetic genealogy. However, there are all these dates that just kind of fly in the face of that fact. One of them is that on December 16th, we see in the suppressed Google warrants that there is verbiage that they were looking at Bryan Kohberger's CVS account, or the one attached to his email. And that was on the 16th of December. Then on the 13th of December, we had one of the victim's mothers talking about 2 investigators who brought up Bryan Kohberger's name. And that was on the 13th of December. Then there were a couple other oddball things that they seem like too much of a coincidence. For instance, Chief Fry shows up on the 7th of December and a U-Haul van that says Pennsylvania across it. Now, we didn't know about Bryan Kohberger at that time, but we did know about 4chan. And 4chan brought up Poconos, Pennsylvania. So all of us were like, well, it must be assigned to the person in 4chan. And back to 4chan, 4chan noted Pocono, Pennsylvania long before we knew about Bryan Kohberger. So what I'm getting at is I'm not implying that was Bryan Kohberger in the 4chan. What I'm implying is law enforcement maybe isn't telling us everything, and maybe the defense doesn't even quite know. But there's something strange going on, because it appears they had Bryan Kohberger's name than the official date that they're giving us, which is the 19th of December. And then there's also the possible federal grand jury subpoenas that involved Bryan Kohberger, which rumored to have happened a week after the crime. So that would have been an even earlier date they knew his name. So I don't know what we don't know, but something doesn't match up with the timeline. So there you go, AR.
So if I could just add 2 cents to your timeline situation. And of course, no, it's never going to make sense. And I'll tell you exactly why. You have a state investigation and you have a federal investigation. The federal investigation is not going to tell you anything. You're not going to learn when they got on to Bryan Kohberger. They may give you just like hints at it that the state's going to utilize when this gets to trial. And that might be when the feds shifted their information over to the state. So that's going to be their timeline. The feds shifted the time frame over to the state on X of a day. That doesn't mean that's when the feds were on to anybody, because the feds will not share with you when, how, why. They're not going to share with you their investigative techniques. They're not going to share with you how they got to what detailed thought process, and that will never be known. There's parts of my federal cases that I was convicted on, sent to the penitentiary on, that still to this day we don't know the answer to, because the federal prosecutors don't have to give that information up. I don't know if you guys know this or not. Many federal cases are actually tried in the dark, away from public vision, and a lot of the actual information is not shared publicly like they are in state cases. So if you really feel as though all the information from the FBI has been shared to you in a fair and open, picture type of realm, you're wrong. You're fooled. I've said that they were on to Bryan Kohberger within a week of this crime happening. I truly feel they could have possibly been on to him within days of this crime happening. I'm probably wrong, but I'm telling you, it's before the dates that they've clarified they were on.
Well, I'll let you go, Robert, because I've been talking way too much.
Yeah, my StreamYard keeps fucking booting me. Maybe I made my StreamYard mad tonight. But no, just like you had those two those two WSU police officers. One queried Boyd Elantris, and then they came across Brian Cooper's driver's license, and came up as Pennsylvania for his tag, and then the other WSU police officer went driving around looking for White Elantris, found Brian's White Elantra, and it had Washington tags, which he had changed on, I believe, on the 17th or 18th, the 18th of November, and that was around the 25th of November. So, yeah, I know where you're coming from, brother. Yeah, they had him in their crosshairs, like you said, either a week to 2 weeks after the homicides, because and even more with those two those two police officers basically writing his stuff down and then setting it aside. And then I think, what was it, a week later, Brett Payne picked up that tip for the White Elantra there in Pullman. And I don't know if he was being tracked by FBI when him and his father drove from Pullman to Pennsylvania, because they picked up his car on a tag reader in Loma, Colorado. And I don't know if that was the Moscow PD who was monitoring the car, or if it was the FBI. Because someone had told Payne that his car was picked up in Loma, Colorado on a tag reader.
Yeah, I do remember that. Swamp, do you want to throw in real quick before I throw a little more emphasis on it?
Yes, please. So the first thing I want to do is go back to what you were talking about, AR, which essentially, just to paraphrase, he's like, well, when the FBI tossed it to the local police department is the date that they're going to say they caught it, and whatever they did before that is in the dark, and they're never going to tell us. And everything else you had to say in detail, which I'm not articulating well. My point is are you okay with that, audience? Are you okay with a regular citizen having a black ops investigation into them that we can't see? I'm not specifically talking about Brian Kohlberger. I'm just speaking in general, because that's the way AR was posing this to us from experience.
Well, think about it this way too, okay? So Ann Taylor and Massoff, the defense team for Brian Kohlberger, stood in the very courtroom saying, we know you have grand jury subpoenas. We know you have federal grand jury subpoenas, and we need this information from those. And the judge even said, okay, well, what I'm going to have to do is go through this process. We're going to send that information over to the FBI, and we're going to request that information. He didn't say we're going to get that information. He says we're going to request that information. And guess what they got back? Nothing. None of it. Why? Because the FBI doesn't have to give it to you. The FBI doesn't even have to show that they have it. That's the difference between federal cases and state cases. State cases are very by the book. They're supposed to be open to the public knowledge. You're walked through the case so that you better understand it. Where the hang up in this case is, the work was done by the FBI. The work was done by the FBI. They did their own investigating over there. While Brett Payne, the Moscow Police Department, the Idaho, they were all working their so-called magic over here. But their magic was so bad, they didn't even know Washington State officers had located Brian Kohlberger's car until December 19th, or whatever they said was when they finally connected and talked that out. Okay, that's great. I guarantee the FBI already knew about that. I guarantee you the FBI already knew about the car. The FBI already knew about the transfer of plates. The FBI knew everything about Bryan Kohberger because when the car was found in Oregon that fit the very bill for the car they were looking for, they didn't even budge to go get any information on it. All they did was release an actual statement saying, we have no interest in that car. It has nothing to do with our case. We're not even looking at it. So everybody drop it. The reason why, they were already on to Bryan Kohberger's car. You just don't ever fully understand how out of sight the FBI truly is and what they do until you get into a courtroom and you're being prosecuted on federal charges and your defense attorney goes into attack mode to try to get information out of a witness on the stand, and they just say, I don't think I'll answer that. And you're sitting there as a defendant going, wait, he could say that? He doesn't have to answer that? No, because that would be impeding their investigative techniques. That would be impeding their strategies. That would impede their very way of getting to this. And let me tell you, when you get sentenced to over 20 years in the federal penitentiary based upon not even knowing how they got the evidence they did, like, me, I kind of knew about the evidence because, look, I was a part of the perpetrator of the crime. Of course, I knew about it. But when I'm sitting there scratching my head going, how did you get to that? Like, you're claiming you know this information off of my computer drives, and I know those computer drives are sitting at the bottom of a lake, but you've got the information, and you're not going to tell people how you have that information? That's pretty scary. And I'm telling you, I've harped on it. I've harped on it from the very beginning of when I started broadcasting this. I said, ladies and gentlemen, look, you can hate on me all you want. The FBI is leading this investigation. The FBI is doing this investigation. I literally had people screaming at me that I was foolish. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. Even other content creators came at me because they ex-law enforcement said, no, the local law enforcement and the Idaho State Police Department know exactly what they're doing. They got this. And I'm like, dude, no, they don't. The very people that went in to do all of the digital forensics within that house and all of the diagramming of it was FBI. They even had to show up a year later to finish what they started. That was FBI. I mean, it's clear as day. And that's my biggest fear in this case. And I'll tell you, both Robert and Kiki and everybody in chat, my biggest fear in this case, and I'm going to be at the courthouse for this trial, and I'm going to be the one that probably screams to the high heavens about it because I've been through the process, is when this starts and Ann Taylor begins a cross-examination of one of the federal agents, and the judge ends the cross-examination and says, okay, we're done here. Sorry. That's it. No more questions. We're done. And Ann Taylor will say, but wait, I do have more questions. I do want to make this point. I do want to get this into the case docket. I want to get this on record. And the judge is going to say, I don't care. I'm sorry. This is done and over. They won't have the federal representatives there to protect the federal witnesses and be their lawyers. They'll be right there in the courtroom. So it's going to get shut down. I feel it. I just feel it within me because I watched it happen in my own case. They hand walked me out of the courtroom in cuffs screaming because I couldn't even get a legitimate defense against what they were charging me with because they ended the cross-examination. It's going to happen again. I see it. I feel it.
Oh, just like I was gonna say, just like what we were talking about the other night about cameras in the courtroom. This judge, I mean, just like Judge John Judge, he streams stuff directly to his YouTube. So at any minute during that trial, all that judge has to do is push a button, and our seeing what goes on in that trial is gone.
And legitimately, everybody, I not only Kiki, I can see it in your face, the concern in your face. Robert, you know what I'm talking about. And I know people are feeling it within our chat as well. Whether you feel this young man is guilty or innocent, you should feel this deep down within you that now we've gotten to such a point in our country that our public forum of truth and justice is no longer truth and justice on a public view anymore. They have the capability to shut that down into the dark. And there's nothing we as the taxpayers, we as the voters, we as the people that create our communities and stand for the fairness of everybody alive. We don't matter anymore. Because if a judge says, I'm shutting down the lights, I'm shutting this down. Judge Hippler says, I'm shutting off the lights of this courtroom, just like Judge Gold did over in Delphi. Who's going to stop it? Nobody can stop it when he's the boss until it gets to the appeal process and goes to the Supreme Court of Idaho. And then it's up to them if they even want to hear the appeal. It's not guaranteed. People say when you have a death penalty case, you're guaranteed the appeals. Yeah, you do. You can file out all the paperwork you want. And you can do it for the next 7 years. The Supreme Court has to select to hear it. And they just might not. They may not. Because they may look at Judge Hippler and say, we trust what he did. We nominated him. We picked him to be the judge of the Bryan Kohberger case. We put him in place because we trusted him, and he shut out the lights, so we're good. Robert, your turn, bud.
Yeah, I'm just going back to what you were saying, and I think you were agreeing with me a little bit about if he wants to kill the stream, he can kill the stream just by the push of a button. I was watching a show last night on YouTube, and it was about death row inmates there in Indiana. And one of the inmates, he's been on death row for like 9 years, and he's already at I guess there's levels there in Indiana, and he's at level 14, and this guy Trevor asked him, well, how many stages are there for appeals and for a death row inmate? And this gentleman, I think his name was Fred something, said there's 16 levels of appeal, and he said, I'm just about wrapping on mine. And so if that's the same way in Idaho, there might be like different levels of appeal that they could go through, but like you were saying, at the same time, the Supreme Court could say, we're not doing it. Judge Hippler's ruling is final. Yeah, we're not doing it.
So when I got sentenced, and then Kiki, I'm going to throw it to you here in a sec, because we do have a question up here also I'd like to get to. But I was sentenced both in the state and in the federal courts within a very short period of each other on my major cases. And the state gave me their sentence, and then they said, okay, you're going to go over now to the federal jurisdiction, and they'll deem, in their courts based upon their sentencing guidelines, what you're able to get. And it was really interesting to go through both. And then at the end of being sentenced, they read off, this is how long you have until your appeal opportunities expire. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, I got 30 days in the state to file my appeal. And then in the federal side of things, I had a little bit longer. I had 60 days to file my appeal over in the, in the federal side of things. So I thought, plenty of time, no big deal. I got lawyers on this, no top of the, here we go. Well, I had forgotten that when you get sentenced, they transport you from jail to the classification center for the penitentiary, where you go dark for a good period of time. Robert, I don't know how long you went dark for, but you don't make phone calls, you don't write letters, you don't do anything as you're being classified. So my 30 days to appeal my state case ran out while I was still sitting in a classification cell in the state side of things. And because they had already sentenced me on the federal side, my time started before I was even transferred to the classification center for the state. So by the time I finally hit my first prison yard, I had 6 days to file my motion for my appeal on my federal case, and I had no federal lawyer to do it. I had 6 days to try to find a lawyer, and guess what? At that point in time, I didn't have anybody in my corner. I was single. My parents were not willing to answer phone calls from me. I didn't have money on my books to be able to buy stamped envelopes or paper or writing utensils. So I had to wait until the very next commissary day where I could apply for indigent, not get it, but apply for it, which takes another 3 weeks to get. So my appeals were exhausted and ran out to the federal level and on the state level before I even got to take my first shower at the state penitentiary. So when people say they're setting all this up, they're setting this up perfectly for, the appeals process. I'm one that's going to be right back over here screaming back at everybody saying, well, don't count on that. Like hopefully Ann Taylor and this defense team sticks with Brian if he's found guilty. Hopefully they stick with him side by side and they get those appeals in immediately. Otherwise, this could be a really scary battle. Very, very scary battle.
Yeah, like I was in RDU. We have a place here called Regional Diagnostic Unit, or RDU. I was in there for about a month and a half, almost 2 months, because I arrived there in the middle of April. Back in 2005, 2006, because I got to my first prison on 6/6/6. June 6th of 2006.
Oh, Robert.
But that's when I went dark, was when I was in RDU, because I started out in a one-man cell, while they did all the assessments and everything else. I was allowed to write one letter a week. That was about it. The only person I ever wrote was my brother and my cousin. But it's going to be real. If something does happen, and if he is found guilty, which I hope I kind of hope he's not going to be found guilty. He's going to be in for a really scary situation once he gets to where he's going, because he's going to go dark, and it's not going to be by his choosing. It's going to be by the diagnostic unit, because when you get to the diagnostic unit, you don't even have your prison number yet.
Yeah, they're just doing all the basic intake. They're trying to figure out your mentality, your educational background. Man, they were waking me up at 2:00 in the morning to go take a damn math test. They wanted to see if I knew how to spell words at 1:30 in the morning when I hadn't ate in 3 days. If you wanted to see one individual that was highly upset and angry and willing to just go off the deep end, try waking up an inmate at 2:30 in the morning of a cell of 35 people he hasn't got a wink of sleep in a week from, and he's eating bologna sandwiches that are 4 months old, and then you tell him, do you want him to go take a math test at 3:00 in the morning? Okay, sure. Let's go take that math test. I'm going to give you how many officers, if you add up 1 + 1 + 1, how many do you think I could knock out in a row before you guys slam me to the ground and pepper spray me? That's what the next math test is going to be. I mean, it makes you angry, but, and that's why, too, when people start discussing in this case a plea agreement, you can't plea. You cannot take a plea agreement in this case because you have no right to an appeal. Ever can you appeal anything if you sign a plea bargain. If you agree to any plea for any reason, You have no appeal process at your disposal. There's nothing there. Swamp, I would love to hear your thoughts. I could see the wheels turning up there. You got thoughts are rolling. I can't wait to hear them.
I'm just angry hearing a lot of these things. I have to go back because I had things I wanted to say when you were talking about the feds. And we got into a few different subjects, which I will touch base on. But when it comes to the feds and what you're explaining to me, and just as you were talking about how they conduct their business, I saw the chat saying, that's scary. That's scary. Their instincts, their human instincts are that scary because you, at least in America or American viewers, you have rights endowed by your creator that are put into writing in this country in our Constitution. And one of them is that you're allowed to face your accuser in this country. Now, many of you watching, if you have like if you lean towards the guilt side of Bryan Kohberger, you might say, well, this was an extreme case. This was an extreme offender. This was somebody we had to get off the streets. Of course, we would have the feds investigating such an extreme case. But you just heard AR. Let's humanize this situation for a second. You just heard AR talking about how the same freaking thing happened to him. The feds show up. They want to know a little bit more about this evidence. And the judge says that he doesn't have to, this is protected information against an American citizen, a regular American citizen who isn't a homeland security threat, who isn't affected. If you don't think it's a big deal, then you don't understand your rights. And when they get treaded on and we don't audit them when we see these problems, they go away. So it's not like anyone's ever going to write a law and take our rights away. They're going to get chipped away at this judicial level when we just allow people to walk all over them. So we have to audit our rights. We have to see if they're still there. And then when we blatantly see something that is 100% against our written amendments to not allow someone to face their accuser, that's frightening. And I just, the chat said the same thing. They said it was scary. And I just thought the human instinct and human to clear my throat. And the other thing I wanted to bring up, if you want to respond to that, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to bogart.
Well, I just want to actually do a quick poll. I want to include our community real quick in this discussion. I want to lay it out in a very simple manner. When you have watched everything that's been transpiring and you heard the term that there was a Frank's motion for the opportunity to go into a Frank's hearing, and then we all sat and we watched and we read the documents from the January 23rd hearing and everything laid out in front of us. And Robert, Kiki, and I, we've all discussed this numerous times and how we felt. But in your opinion, put up a 1 in the chat if you felt as though this case most definitely was going to have a Frank's hearing, and put a 2 if you felt as though there was no need for a Frank's hearing. So this is a very simple question. Did you feel like it was going to have one, or did you just always feel like it didn't need one?
I can just say I definitely put a 1 because we got a 3 in there from Tonka. Didn't know. I put a 1 just because I always heard that they were going to do this to prevent litigation in the future. Just look at this evidence. But
well, and the thing is, and I'm going to be just straight up with all of you. My thought process is I knew for a fact it wouldn't happen. I wanted to see it happen just to watch the motions of what would take place and then just see the testimony that came from it. But because of my past, and it's great to see everybody in here. I want to say hi to everybody. Because of my past, I know legitimately that, when you hear Frank's hearing, they don't happen. They do not happen. A judge is not going to allow in an open public court a display of the possibility that law enforcement was dishonest or did something manipulative within a case. That's going to be kept very private. And when I say it's going to be kept very private, what I mean by that is we're going to go to trial with this. This is going to go before a jury to make a determination, and then our saving grace at the end of the day, after a group of peers of ours as a defendant make that decision, it'll move forward from there and work its way through the appeals spectrum to where they can look at actual case law and they can look at the different things and try to put it all together. But you have to understand, in a case like Bryan Kohberger's, he has not been charged federally. He's only been charged state-wise. So let's compare this real quick. If you look at Luigi Mangione in New York, and you compare it to the Bryan Kohberger case, look at what's happened. Mangione was charged criminally, both in the state and in the feds. He committed a crime in New York City. He caught a bus. He got caught in Pennsylvania. So now he's charged federally because they say it's a terrorist-style attack of when he took the life of this CEO of a healthcare company, which in my opinion, I already kind of know why they're going that route, but it's also double charging. Bryan Kohberger's only been charged by the state, and I'll make a bold statement on this. If the state fails, the feds won't. If you know what I mean by that, if the state fails in this case and does not get a guilty verdict, the feds will not fail. And that's sad. It's very sad, just because I know how this process works. And everybody, I screamed, Bryan Kohberger's going to get charged federally. He's absolutely going to get charged federally. It very much is the same thing as Luigi Mangione. Mangione is being charged federally because he disrupted our healthcare system and took its CEO out in a very public manner, which is terrorism, because it diverted everything that company, the healthcare company, stood for. What did Bryan Kohberger do? If Bryan Kohberger is the actual, and I need to say that, whoever committed this crime, what'd they do? They did the very same thing to the University of Idaho that happened to the healthcare company. It's a terrorist attack, because how many students were deemed at risk because of this crime? It's federal, guys. The feds are just chilling. They're sitting back. They're just chilling. They had a grand jury with the feds. They ran all the evidence through the federal grand jury. They did everything necessary on the federal side. The feds are the ones that are going to come to court and testify. The feds are going to do this. They're going to do that because they were able to get away with it in the dark. And guess what? They can charge him in the dark too. Did you guys know that? You can be federally charged in the dark. Nobody even has to know you have federal charges.
Wow.
These things get crazy when you've actually been there and done them. And I love listening to people that have worked within law enforcement that are not willing to lay out the actual details of how this stuff works, because it is scary and it breaks people's everyday rights. It breaks your privileges of being a United States citizen. And once they lock that key in that prison door of an inmate, Robert, you know this, if they say you're doing 25 years to life, you're doing life. Mm-hmm. If they say you're not getting out, you're not getting out. If they say you got the death penalty, that just means you're going to go sit in a prison cell for the rest of your life, because they're not going to put you to sleep. You're just going to sit in a prison cell for the next 45 years. I mean, that's just the way these things work. And if you think that the court process is not prosecutory friendly, if things are not guided down the law side of things, they absolutely are. And if you think as an inmate you have the right to speak up about that, guess what? Go sit in a hole and be quiet for 30 days. And if you get a little bit hungrier while you're sitting in there, maybe you'll learn to be quiet. Don't fight yourself in public at trial, because we won't feed you when you get back to your cell after your hearing. You'll go hungry for the night. I don't know how many times I came back after a court hearing where they transported me intentionally after 5 p.m., knowing that dinner was served at 4:45. And if I got back to my cell after 5 p.m., they didn't have food to serve me because the kitchen had already closed and they were cleaning it up. So because I misbehaved or spoke my 2 cents, I didn't get brought back to eat that night. And guess what? You wait till the next morning, get a little itty bitty portion, and they might just skip your cell then too. That's why they call it solitary confinement, segregation, because hey, if they don't want to feed you, who's going to know? Who's going to know? If they don't want to pick up your mail or drop off your mail, who's going to know? Come on. And you wonder why Bryan Kohberger looks skinny. You wonder why Bryan Kohberger looks skinny at his last hearing. It's because his lawyers are battling and battling and battling. And he's not getting the proper treatment that he should be. And it's sad. And I'll be the first one to speak. Why do you think April 9th, for these very hearings of what's going to be allowed to be spoken upon in the courtroom at trial, I'm going to be there? My wife has taken the whole week off. We are going to be there for these hearings, and I'm going to have no problem broadcasting live from right outside the courthouse, and nobody can take that right away from me. I can't do it in the courthouse, but I'll be right out in front of it, and nobody's taking that right away because I know what my rights to speak are, and nobody has any cuffs on me anymore. So I'm going to share it with everybody. I'm going to bring it right to everybody's attention.
I was gonna say you had a question in the chat by Twiz.
Can I
just... Yeah, jump in while I'm looking for it.
All right. So I just want to say it. So we had the whole discussion about constitutionality, and then we're getting back to the discussion we had last night about cruel and unusual punishment. But when you bring up depriving someone of food or basic needs, because we've talked about also depriving inmates of water, medication, and now food, which in every discipline, you're never under any circumstances supposed to even discipline an animal from withholding food. Food is a basic right. Water, I don't even feel like I need to, how do we even need to tell people that you have to give water to a living creature? It's completely cruel and unusual punishment. And if the Constitution isn't the only tool that should be utilized when we hear about these things, I mean, I think of like, we have treaties with other countries where we're not supposed to be doing this stuff. The things that you're describing to me are the things that you think about like at, and I don't, I'm sorry to put this label on it, but Guantanamo Bay or something. Like things that you do to get time-sensitive information out of terrorists. I don't understand how I'm hearing this. Like, it's crazy to be thrown into this world where I hear these stories from you guys. And I think when you followed mainstream media for so long and you never were really into these smaller true crime, creators and reporters, you miss that these are just your regular people. This is 25% of our population that is affected by incarceration. It's your neighbor, it's your family members. Like, these aren't just terrorists running around the street. They're doing this to regular people. And then when you hear about the investigations where people aren't allowed to know their defense, these aren't terrorists. These are just regular citizens who allegedly broke a law. I don't know how this is even a legitimate conversation. It's making me uncomfortable. I just want to give the two treaties too,
Right. And I want to answer Twizzlestick's question here in a second, but I just want to kind of finalize it in a manner that it's the truthful manner of how I got to where I'm at today. And I don't really consider myself a content creator. When I came to this platform, I wanted to talk true crime. And my wife and I, like I've told everybody, and I've told you guys as well, we sat down and we realized, look, I've got a past. I've got a very unique past that not everybody is willing to accept. Not everybody's willing to respect it. But I knew that if I didn't walk that fine line and just stay on point and be honest about it, that I literally would never make it on YouTube. It just never would happen. And my wife was really guiding me because she said, your voice needs to be heard. You've been through a lot. Like, guys, I've been in Florence, Colorado, the max federal penitentiary of this country that held the Boston bombers and some of the most high-pressed federal inmates of all time. It is the max of the max of the max. And I didn't even get classified to be there. I got transferred there on my way from one state to another because I misbehaved on the transport bus and got into a fist fight with a highly delicate, like, confidential witness in a federal case. And it just got overboard. And so I got to sit on the harshest of prison settings for 2 months because of that. Well, that's a part of the penitentiary. I'm sorry. If you think that you're going to walk through it without having some disruptions, you're not, especially when you're going from state to state. So I knew coming to this platform, the greatest thing that I could offer is knowledge of what it's truly like, because so many people are scared to share that. I do see people on the platform that talk about their experiences in the penitentiary. I have high levels of respect for them for doing that. And I know I can always tell whose story's real and whose isn't, because probably the states they're talking about, I've probably been housed in that state. So I would know, just like they would know when they watch my channel, they would be able to say, yeah, that's not how that yard works. He's full of it. And I haven't had a person like that step up on my platform and say, oh, he's full of it. Other than the people want to say that I had to be some snitch or I had to be some low-level inmate. Well, evidently you don't know me that well, because I was so dirty, rotten in the penitentiary, I would put my own family at risk to send them to jail to bring me cell phones and various things. I never learned until I needed to learn. So when I speak to you guys about these things, I'm very direct in the conversation to try to get the emphasis of what really you're looking at when it comes to your system. We can all portray it one way, but when you have to endure it, you learn it's not that way. That's not what it is. And even the people that have worked with law enforcement that will tell you, well, this is the way it is, probably don't tell you exactly how it is. They tell you the basics. I mean, Robert, you've been there. You're probably a different level than me, but you've been there. Is it what people explain it to be, or is there more to it than that?
There's more to it than that. Like, I was minimum custody behind the walls of Max with this program, Brothers in Blue. We were in a max custody cell house, but it was our cell house, so it's basically minimum and medium custody inmates. But we still got locked down when there was a prison fight. We still got locked down when somebody got locked and socked and shanked and everything else. Like I was telling a friend of mine earlier. Yeah, he told me, oh, man, a prison is a pushover, and I told him, I'm like, don't believe everything that you see on TV. I'm like, what you see on TV is glamorized. I'm like, prison is nothing like what you see on TV.
You do know they shoot inmates on prison yards with actual shotguns in the head if you get into a good enough riot, right? They'll take your life in a heartbeat. So you can only imagine when a riot breaks out of 700 people and you're this little itty bitty guy like me, and you're right in the middle of it going, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? I've only been here 3 hours and the fight's already on. My first time in the penitentiary, the riot broke out on the yard and I'd only been there 3 hours. I had no idea what I was doing or supposed to do. But I'll tell you what, you learn quick. And that's why I want people to understand everything that we're seeing when it comes to the Bryan Kohberger case. The reason why it doesn't make sense is because you're not being told the truth. You are not being shown the truth of what's happening. There's more to this. It doesn't make sense. Even to someone like me, I scream about it because it doesn't even make sense to me. But I know there's more to this story. So when we're sitting here and we're debating timelines, we're debating all this stuff, what we literally need to be debating is Brian Koberger, when he goes to trial, will they get him to a prison yard in enough time to file his appeal? Because if this goes to trial with the way this judge is handling it right now, this is a prosecutor-friendly judge that's allowing everything to flow right through. Put it in perspective. All those motions by the defense to suppress evidence, all of those motions to work towards a Franks hearing. And guess what? Most of us actually paid attention to it. We caught something in there that caught our attention that we felt was creditable. They all got denied. All of them. Isn't that scary?
Yep.
Every single motion got denied. Not one of them did this judge say, I think I should suppress that because that makes a lot of sense. And I don't think they got to the correct way of investigating that. That is really odd. I think I'm going to suppress that one piece of evidence. I mean, God, you could have suppressed something, bushy eyebrows, something. But no, he denied every single motion. And that leaves you in a feeling in your stomach that there's a chance for a fair trial here? Where? Like, where is the fairness of this going to come? Do you think all of a sudden we made it through all these suppression motions, a Franks hearing motion, all of this stuff where even the judge himself looked at Brian Koberger and said, well, you shouldn't have left your DNA at the crime scene? That sure makes you a perp there, done it there, bud. You have no right to privacy. You have no right to anything. You left your DNA at the crime scene. He didn't say if you possibly left your DNA at the crime scene or if there's an explanation of how your DNA got left at the crime scene. No, it was strictly you should not have left your DNA at the crime scene next to the victims.
Mm-hmm.
Where did he ever say, man, it's really weird we didn't test that blood to figure out who that belonged to? Where did he ever say in there, hey, guys, this cell phone ping stuff doesn't make a lot of sense. Is there a way that you can explain instead of telling me there's actually 3 towers where in your documentation you say 2? So already you've proven to me you've said something in your documents, and that should warrant a Franks hearing. But guess what? At the end of the day, I'm going to overlook that and just bypass it.
There's a question for you by JK.
I hadn't got to Twizzle Stick yet. Is the state going to have to show how he got to the house or just that he was at the house? All the state's going to have to do is just showcase a theory. And if the jury takes that theory, then that counts. And if they don't, then the defense will win on whether they feel as though he was around the house or not. I'm sorry, I'm a little emotional, guys. Like when I get into discussions like this, I take these very seriously because they are serious.
Yes.
A person's life is at risk, just like, the victims and their families and everybody mourns for them and wants justice. Well, you know what? I sit over here screaming, I think Brian Koberger deserves a fair shake, and justice would be he gets a fair trial, and then determine it from there, weighing out the true facts and the true meaning of those facts, rather than, just determine him guilty at a Franks hearing. I mean, how do I think the Fed got to Brian before the IGG got back? That's the biggest question. That's the hardest thing to answer is I don't know what was found in and around the house outside of what's been disclosed to us. We don't know what the inside of the house looked like. Was there writing on the wall? Was there a note inside? Is there actual people that stepped up to the plate saying they saw Koberger pull back into his apartment? I mean, there's so much that can go into how the FBI gets to somebody. But trust me, they scour, they dig, they cheat, they lie, they scare people, they put people in corners. They'll bring in people that are on federal parole or probation and force them to go undercover for them to get info. There's so much that they do, guys. And I don't know how they got to Brian Koberger. That's why we're all scratching our head. But I'll tell you, at the end of the day, we're never going to find out. we'll never know how they got to Brian Kober. Robert, you know this just as well as I do, even out of state cases. You are not going to find out how they got to Brian Kober. You're going to hear a story, and a story that's been worked on and worked on and worked on between the prosecution and the witnesses, whoever that witness is going to tell it is, on how they're going to portray that to the jury, and that's what's going to fly. And if it's believable, there you go. That's how they got to Brian Koberger. That very story, if it's believable, is how they got to Brian Koberger. And when you sit there as a defendant, like I've done in the past, knowing I committed the crime, knew exactly how I committed the crime, knew when I committed the crime, knew every detail of the crime, because I don't forget that type of stuff. I knew every detail of my crimes. I even knew what was going to get me caught before they did. And then you sit and you watch it, and as the court rolls out, and you go, that had no part of this case. That's not true. There's no way you got that evidence. No, that's not possible. And guess what? That's what gets you convicted.
Yep.
There's
a question. I didn't mean to interrupt you, brother. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
There's a question on my side from WB. So they built a model. They built a model of their house, but I thought they didn't need the house.
Well, they didn't need the house because they built the model and they did all the digital scans. You remember that, Kiki? Remember how they did all that originally, and then they had to go back in after a year when they started talking about tearing down the house, and all of a sudden the FBI had to go back in for more stuff. Remember that?
For the Oculus test.
Yeah, so that's all. That's what everything is on this. They did all their measurements, and then they put these great people together to build this little toy doll house that's going to be utilized in one of the biggest trials in the last 10 years. And, you know, that's what we're all supposed to look at and believe is where this just unbelievable crime happened. And we're supposed to be okay with that. Like in our stomachs, we're going to feel okay with that. These victims are only worth a 3-foot by 5-foot model home to demonstrate everything that they went through inside of that home.
Yeah.
I would be a pissed off individual if I was a parent of these kids. I'd be back in prison.
Yeah,
Kiki, why don't you talk for a minute, sweetheart?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I wanted to go back to what you were talking about when you were talking about when they asked the defense to rewrite their answers to the prosecution's motion. And it's not the first time you brought up, and you said that it makes you emotional. And it's interesting to hear, you know, we've talked about some really intense stories. We just told a story the other night of you being stabbed from behind through your belly button in your spine and having your foot, and you didn't, you know, get emotional. So I really pause and listen to what you had to say. And the way that I'm looking at this, you know, the first point that AR was bringing up when we had that segment was, look at all these motions. Look at all of them. And none of them, not a bushy eyebrow, nothing got suppressed, nothing. And so my question is this, like just an outsider looking in, again, first true crime case ever I followed. To me, oh, Mikey, thank you for the blessing for AR. You know what, why don't I pause my thought and let's go ahead and read what Mikey had to say. So AR, this is why I personally reached out. I took a break and I met a few guys I had personal convos with and you served with. And I reached out to you for the price you've paid and let you know to speak on it, bro. Brutally.
Yeah. Mikey S. is an amazing individual. He sent me an email one day and he was just very open. He was very just direct to the point. And, you know, some of the conversation that he brought up revolved around an individual that, you know, this man's life, and I'll tell you, he is a very big content creator. He's not a small content creator. This guy is very, very well known. His life was heavily on the line, and I know exactly why it was on the line, and it was on the line with people that I knew very well. So Mikey and, you know, and I got into a little conversation, and he asked me, do you know this individual? Of course I do. Of course I do. And I'm not going to say the man's name here, but he is very well known, very, very well known out of the Arizona, and he's done time elsewhere as well. But he no longer can even reside in our country because of how his life was in such danger. And, you know, just to kind of quickly, I'll make a statement real quick, because I don't want people to feel as though just because I don't flinch or I don't show emotion when I talk about some of my past and some of my experiences, because there are instances in my experiences that I do get emotional about. My wife meant everything to me, and in you know, my winding down of serving my time, she was my rock. She was the only one that stood beside me. She was the only one that was working me to turn for the better side of things. So I was doing everything I possibly could to walk a fine line. And her and I had lost our visits. We hadn't seen each other in 5 years. We had only talked randomly on the phone. So finally, I was able to get my visits back. And, you know, it was a cheating way to get them back, but I was able to get them back. And she was able to come visit me. And on the very first time in 5 years, she was able to come visit me in an Arizona visitation room of the penitentiary. I had worked my way down for the very first time to a medium custody yard, meaning I was around other inmates. Someone bumped her in the visitation room on her way to buy a candy bar out of, you know, the vending machine. You're allowed to bring quarters in. She was going to the vending machine to buy a candy bar. A inmate from my past affiliation just about bulldozed Jennifer on the way to getting that candy bar, and I jumped up in a heartbeat, and a fight was on. Right in front of Jen's eyes, I was stabbed in the neck from 2 different people from 2 different directions that laid me on the floor, bleeding profusely, to where personnel of the DOC had to quickly jump in to try to save my life. They had to put sandbags on my neck just to slow the bleeding, as I had 3 to 4 inch deep holes in my neck from prison knives. And the only thing I remember before passing out on that floor from blood loss was the look in my wife's eyes as she was being restrained by officers so she could not get to me to touch me or feel me or know if I was okay, as she watched my eyes close and me pass out. I woke up like 35 days later in the prison hospital infirmary with holes still in my neck. They had got the bleeding to stop, obviously, but we still had a lot of surgical procedures we had to do, and then we had to do skin grafting. We had a lot of stuff to go. But in all of that time, I learned immediately that my wife still had not heard whether I had lived or passed. And I had no way to reach her. I had no way to contact her. I couldn't make phone calls. There was, you know, no visitation, obviously, nobody to contact her. And a guard named Officer Duran that worked at one of the higher level yards I had been on happened to be working the infirmary unit at the hospital. And he walked up, patted me on the leg, and handed me his cell phone. And I just looked at him and shook my head, because obviously you can't hand an inmate your cell phone when you're a guard. He says, "Call your wife. She's worried about you." And I just looked at him and I didn't understand, like, where's this coming from? You know, where's it? So I was able to talk to my wife, and I handed back the guard, Officer Duran. I still talk to him to this day. I hope one day he'll come up on stage with me and talk, because we built a bond, a friendship. His father died not long after that, and he left the penitentiary. But what I learned, the way he knew how desperate my wife was to talk to me, is he worked in the mail room on his off days of working the actual guard shack on the yard. So he saw my mail coming in constantly from my wife and was able to tear the address off of the envelope of my wife's address and sent her a postcard letting her know I was alive. I was in the infirmary. And the next time that he was able to see me, he would make sure I could call her. So, you know, when people say, like, I don't show a lot of emotion in regards to my stories, guys, I've written so many chapters of a personal story of a book that, you know, is going to be hopefully released, or I can get into more talking about myself, you know, on that level. I don't want to do it on my true crime channel. I want to do it on a personal level so those that don't care don't have to hear it. But my voice that I speak on today, and the reason why I'm internally emotional and maybe don't showcase as well, is because people like Bryan Kohberger, people like Richard Allen, people like Luigi Mangione, people out there, no matter whether people have found them guilty or not, deserve a fair shake within the system. They deserve to be able to walk through the justice system fairly. And those that are not guilty shouldn't have to go sit 30 years on a prison yard when they never should have been there in the first place, because I've seen it. I've seen it. And it's just, when I watch the things like what's happening in the Idaho 4, and then I listen to the inhumane things people are talking about. When I say inhumane things, you're talking hearsay and making it sound truthful. This kid was a stalker. He was this, he was that. And if it is true, okay, let it come out spoken through the truthful means. He himself will display that at some point in time, just like I chose to. If Bryan Kohberger decides to let out the reasoning, if he did commit this crime, he'll let it out at some point. It will come out, but let it be him. Let's not make it up. Let's not falsify it. Let's not pretend that we know, because guess what? Everybody looked at me like I was some chump on a prison yard, that I had to be a something on the prison yard. I had to be this or I had to be that, and they didn't know me. They didn't know a damn thing about me. I'm one of the most loyal people you'll ever meet in your life. I wouldn't turn anybody in for anything, but I will stand behind the people I believe in, and I will fight, and I will battle, and I will pray, and I will do everything for the betterment of that person. And that's called real. I'm not going to make up stories. I'm not going to do it. And when people do it, I get frustrated, and that's why I got to be in the courtroom for Bryan Kohberger. I don't have to be there to speak his truth. I don't have to be there to try to dictate, you know, whether he's guilty, not guilty. I got to be there for his voice of justice, to allow him to speak, to allow him to dictate who he is to those out here. Not us, not me, not other people that have found him guilty. Let him do it. And he'll tell you the truth. I guarantee you, at some point in time, I guarantee you, you're going to see it in the very near future. You're going to know. You're going to know Bryan Kohberger's truth. You will see it. It will come. And at that point, some people are going to look very foolish, and some people are going to look humane. Because if I'm wrong in my belief of what I see in Bryan Kohberger, if I'm wrong in my feeling that I don't think he did this, okay, I'm wrong. But at the end of the day, I was humane, and I gave him the chance. I didn't convict him on my belief. I allowed the process to showcase what he truly was. And Robert, when you went through your scenarios in life, that's what you deserved. I deserve the same. Swamp, in your everyday life, no matter what you're enduring, you deserve that same thing. Humanity. People to look at you fairly, not judge you, not criticize you, especially when they don't know you. But unfortunately, that's what happens every single day. And I'm not going to be that voice that does that. I'm not going to be that one. I'm going to speak out against that, because we all deserve to feel loved. We all deserve to be respected. We all deserved to be looked at as human. We make mistakes. That's just the way it is, guys. We make mistakes. Let it play out. We'll find out. We'll find out whether he's innocent, whether he's guilty, whether it all be. And guess what? He's going to tell us. The truth will come from where it needs to come from. Now, I'm going to put myself on mute, probably because I got to yell at myself for a minute for ranting and raving and just making this about my feelings and my thoughts, because both of you guys definitely need to get your thoughts and your feelings out there. People are here to see you guys. So I'm going to mute.
Robert, do you mind if I finish my thought real quick? And I'll keep it brief. I'm sorry. But when I started to say that about the emotions, I wanted to emphasize that it's like the second time we've really gone into detail about how the judge came back and asked them for more detail and then struck down, or they asked them to make their motions more brief. And then he struck down their motion because it didn't have enough detail or reports attached to it. And it felt like a setup. And you've said that before. And then just seeing you get passionate about it, I took a second back and I just kind of looked like outside the box at it. And to me, like, let's just say this was a business, or let's just say it was a machine or a math equation. There's not a business, machine, anything alive that's going to have that much excess and waste for no reason. And you can say that she has to do these because it sets it up for an appeal. But just like we were saying at the beginning of this live stream, the Supreme Court doesn't actually have to hear your appeal. You can sit there and write all the letters you want. You can fill out all the paperwork you want. Like, you might not even have enough time to get that appeal. And so when we hear that they're doing this to prevent, future litigation or blah, 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 the chances of that happening are only if the authorities allot it, and are very slim in the first place. So it's not just thinking about the paperwork. Think about the average person. When we talk about the feds coming in and you're not able to face your accuser, think about the amount of money you have to spend to defend yourself. Think about the amount of money to pay a lawyer, a group of attorneys like Ann Taylor's to prepare those 2,000-page documents that are just being tossed out for months. I mean, it went on for months through September, October, November, December, all the way up to now, that it was just rule we weren't getting a Franks hearing. Think of all that money. And if it happens to be a regular citizen, we hear people who are on the public stage who have wealth. They are in the politics because they have some money behind them. I mean, it's expensive to run for office. And we watch our lower level political figures get torn down and lose their wealth just from simple litigation, or just a regular citizen. If a Fed is coming in and you have to defend yourself, and then all of a sudden after the defense comes out, they say, oh, sorry, we don't have to tell you. Think of all that work you had to pay for that attorney. You might have had to refinance your house. I mean, it goes beyond this. But just back to the initial point I was making, if it were a business, if it were a machine, and there was that much waste and excess, it would be the worst business. It'd be a failing business, or it would be a machine that didn't work. Like, there's nothing right about that. It doesn't even make sense. And then to put it like this, the part that gets you emotional is realizing this is a trap and it's predictable. That's heartbreaking. And I don't know how much insight I can add more than that, but just an outside observation. I'll toss it to you, Robert. Sorry to bogart the mic.
Oh, it's okay. No, I've just been sitting here thinking. I've talked to this behind the scenes brother about, how me myself as a creator gets knocked because I think a certain way, or I talk a certain way, or I'm a truth seeker. And I see some of the same things that you see in this case, brother. Stuff just don't add up, and because of how I think and how I speak about this case, I get knocked because, oh, he's a pro burger, or he's this, or he's that. I'm a truth seeker. Yeah, I'm seeking the truth in this case, wherever that truth leads me. And I've talked to you about this too, have I not, brother?
Of course you have. Obviously, yep. And I sit right there with you, and I want people to understand that. I think all three of us as creators we're not rooting for someone to be guilty or innocent. We're rooting for justice to be handled accordingly and the people that have committed a gruesome crime to be punished for doing so. And, you know, I just want the open-mindedness that we can respect each other enough, because it's gotten to the point now that the division, not only in social media platforms, but the division on YouTube and the division all the way across the board, we're literally fighting on whether Bryan Kohberger committed a crime or didn't commit the crime, and we don't even have the correct evidence. We're
Brings out a
arguing.
lot of
Like,
toxic people. It really does.
I'm watching
Yes.
it every day, and the attacks are
Most
literally
toxic
coming.
people.
So literally, I can portray it this way, and this is why sometimes I get overly like aggressive, and I've caught myself, and I had to take a step back, and then the health situation didn't make it easier. But when it gets confrontational, when there's a disagreement of opinions or thoughts, as long as it doesn't become disrespectful or attacking of each other, it's still only a discussion, and that's okay. That's a learning way to discuss things, learn from it, work things through, make things make better sense, help each other gain knowledge in certain areas. But the minute that it becomes a disagreement where we begin attacking each other, it puts me right back on the prison yard where I have to defend myself because I don't know who's walking up behind me to try to break what I am as a person. That's not going to happen. And I have to take a step back and remember, some people just don't know how to discuss. All they know how to do is disagree and argue. That's what they've portrayed themselves in life to allow themselves to become. I don't want to go there. I want to discuss cases like the Bryan Kohberger case. At the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to look at Bryan Kohberger any differently on whether he's guilty or not. Some people will. Some people are going to make that judgment. I won't make that judgment because I've walked on that side of the fence in a different way.
Yeah.
But I was a person that walked on that side of the fence. So I'm not going to judge anybody on that side of the fence in a negative way. I'm going to see if I can be a voice to help. Can I help you in any way overcome the demons that are within you or overcome the negativity you're feeling right now? And I think both of you guys can relate to the fact I'm very easy that if you're struggling, I'm one of those people that will stand with you. And all I want to do is help. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all I care about. And I feel no differently, whether it be Richard Allen, whether it be Bryan Kohberger, Luigi Mangione, the Mendez brothers that are up, for a parole, situation with them. I don't look at them like criminals because I lived with them for so long. They're not criminals to me. They're people. They've got feelings. They've got thoughts. They've got emotions. Whether they display them or not, I don't know. But at the end of the day, we come here as a group, the three of us in the community that we have, and it's amazing because we can talk. We can discuss things. We can disagree on things. We can look at things differently. And that's a good thing because we all learn. We all learn. And that's the number one thing that I want to represent. That's the one reason why I'm still on this platform, because many probably know I was gone. I was off this platform. I was ready to go. Like I had no reason to still be here. I had no want to still be here. My voice can still carry off of this platform because I can go shake hands. I can look people in the eye. I can go down to the local jail and see if there's a minor that's getting out of that juvenile jail system that I can bring close and say, hey, man, if you don't change your life, let me show you what it can become. But I enjoy being here. I enjoy the conversation. I enjoy relaying some of the important information. And Robert, I know you have that voice, and Kiki, you do too. And I love the fact that we can do it this way. We can talk about it. We can share experience. We can share thoughts, emotions. And we haven't had one negative person in our chat tonight at all.
Nope.
Not that I've seen. Not a single person.
Nope.
Try going to some of the other channels out there. Try going to some of those other channels out there right now that spread the negativity and the hearsay and the rumors and the gossip and all the garbage that we scratch our head over, and look into their chats. Look into their chats and tell me how cohesive their chats are and how caring their chats are, or watch the arguments break out.
Yeah, may I say something?
Yeah, absolutely.
There is, there is truth in those documents. We just gotta find it. And I mean, like you told me before, even on this platform, that there's truths in those new documents, especially the suppression documents. There's a nugget of truth somewhere in those documents, and what baffles me is why with all these new documents, people are adding to them
and attacking each other over them.
Yes,
and attacking them ferociously over. All three of us on this platform talking to the community right now have been attacked for some reason or another, just based upon our thoughts or our opinions. We've been attacked. We've been put down. We've been ridiculed. We've been made fun of. We've been spit on. We've been kicked dirt on. And all of us are still here because right here, the three of us with this community, this is what it's about. And we're not out here to spread lies. We're not out here to judge anybody. We're here to discuss what we're learning and try to piece it together so it makes more sense to us, so that we can rationalize and say at the end of the day, the system is working appropriately. Our justice system, because that's why we're here. We talk true crime because we want truth in justice.
Yes.
I like to be able to lay my head down at night, Robert and Kiki, and I can say, today I found something that made sense. And then I looked at the court doc, and I looked at the paperwork and the filings, and I listened to Ann Taylor, and I listened to the judge, and I listened to everybody at the last hearing, and they all confirmed what I was looking into. I know this is valid. I didn't make it up. I know it's valid. I can lay my head down at night and go, that felt pretty good. That felt pretty good because now I understand something. So, Kiki, please speak. Please share your mind.
Well, I just want to say, you in the chat is echoing just everything you said was so eloquently said, and I couldn't really add or say it any better than you did. I just will add a couple things. First off, I like the idea that you brought up. Let's if you disagree with someone, we should attack the idea, not the person. Break down people for their looks or mannerisms or the way they talk or where they're from or their education level. You attack the idea, not the person. And the other thing I want to say is I too have had the same sentiments of just walking away, because I'm just not, you all know I'm like super chill. I'm a pretty laid back person, and I don't involve myself in drama in real life. And sometimes I felt like walking away, but I will tell you this, my family, my brothers, Robert and AR here, I can talk to them anytime. I can pick up the phone and call them. I can text them. What brings me back every single time to YouTube are you, the viewers. We love you, and your energy, your thoughts. Our channels, they're nothing. A channel is just a channel. It's the viewers that make a channel. And we just want you to know how much we love you. We appreciate your support. We appreciate you're here. We appreciate the live chat and the incredible, you keep us on point. And we just want to say the live chat was incredible tonight with the questions, the mods, just the entire community. I had to take a moment last night to just make sure I'm adding to thank my Discord server, the researchers, the people that are around us. So I just want to, with everything that AR said and agreeing with him, we just want you to know, you, the viewer, you are the most important thing to us. And we're here to create content for you. And you are the ones who keep bringing us back. We love this community. We love our channel.
Robert, real quick before you jump in, I just want to share some. Jeff H is here. He's in the chat, and let me tell you, Jeff H and I may have different perspectives when it comes to this case, but I can still revert back to a time that Jeff H and I literally spent hours talking on the phone. We shared life stories. We shared thoughts about real life. We talked religion. We talked wives, dogs. We talked about the realness of life, and we got away from the true crime. So, I understand that Jeff has a different perspective when it actually comes to the Bryan Kohberger Idaho 4 case, and that's okay. Jeff has never been disrespectful towards me. He's only had questions that when he asked the questions, he just legitimately wanted to see what my answer would be because he wanted a conversation. So Jeff H has been ridiculed on some channels. Whatever might have happened, I don't care. And that's what it is about my community. My community is built upon respect, not only that I hope that they respect me and I respect them, but respect for all of them around us. And I think that's one of the greatest things that we built is even when the differences of opinions come into our chat, they respect us enough to mingle and discuss things within the chat. And they do it in a respectful way because they respect us. And that's important. And I want to say, I appreciate Jeff H. Like I said, I've had real life conversations with this gentleman off of the platform, literally real life conversations. And it's meaningful to someone like me that doesn't get that on an everyday basis outside of the people that are directly around me now. For somebody to trust me enough to have a real life conversation means the world to me. And this is back, this isn't just like current where people have seen what I've worked to today on the platform. This is back when I was young on the platform. This is early. And he gave me that chance. And we were both very upfront with each other. Like, we disagree on our beliefs on what happened in this case. But that didn't matter. It didn't matter because real life superseded that. And the conversation was always great. So I want to say thank you with that and tell it to Ellie. Same thing with you. Here's another individual I've had personal conversations behind the scenes via, email with. I've understood some of the ups and the downs that she's been through, and she knows that I stand there for her in support, and I'm not going to be negative towards her. I'm glad to see her actually in the live stream here. I made it over to one of hers the other night, and I hadn't been there in a while, so I'm appreciative of that. So, that's really where we need more conversation. We need more dialogue. We need less hurting of each other because, guys, as adults, and I hope everybody in here is an adult. I hope we don't have kids under 18 in here. I would probably be booted off the platform. But has anybody been seeing what's going on with our kids under the age of 18 and how many of them are facing lifetime sentences when they're going to court for violent acts? Have we seen our children acting out in very strong negative ways that are hurting others? We as the adults have showed that. Where do you think they got it from? The video game is only a video game on the TV. The argument and the anger and the negativity towards others comes from a real life person. People learned from me when I was younger how to be a complete jerk, go fight, and take it to a negative level of physicality, violence that would land you in the penitentiary. I know I taught people that. I still talk to them to this day as they're still sitting in the penitentiary serving life sentences based upon things I taught them growing up. So I have to live with that, and that's why it's important. See that little cutie right there? The one right here? These are the ones we need to be a better showcase for right there.
Did he
That's
just
what's
wake you up, honey? Can she hear me? No.
No, she hasn't been to bed yet. I've been trying to get her to bed.
I can tell she's got this sleepy eyes. Tell her I said hi. Tell her I love her.
Here, hold on. Here.
She is such a cutie,
not-
isn't she? Such a cutie.
Hey, baby. How are you?
Hi.
It's good to see you.
Okay, go ahead.
Are you sleepy? Are you sleepy?
Yeah,
All right, we
she's
tried,
running
guys.
to her
She made
bedroom.
an appearance. She made a cameo. All right.
I want to let everybody know there is my replacement for my channel. She will be taking over the true crime discussion when we let her loose. But
Oh, she's gonna beat all of us. She's been watching all of us for so long now. Can you imagine when that kid gets the chance? She'll blow us all up.
it's going to be amazing for sure. And guys, I don't want to be kind of cutting it short, but we wanted to have a little bit shorter of a night tonight, and we're going to be back at this very soon because we have more discussion. I still want to get into, not tonight, but I want to get into the 911 call, obviously being kept out of the upcoming trial. There's no doubt they're going to keep that out, and I want to get everybody's opinion on what they think could possibly be within that 911 call or why they would do that. But we always have so much to talk about, and I'd love just to be able to share the platform with the both of you and the community. Even though sometimes the conversations, like I guys, I want you to understand, like I don't come up here to tell my story. I want to share experience and I want to share knowledge, but I don't, sometimes I get going and I get emotional because there are things that we talk about that in the back of my head, it's like, I know a lot about this because I've been around this. I've endured this, and I think it's key that people get a full gamut of the picture instead of just a partial picture of how this system works. And, I don't want to use the word deceiving side of things because I think that's a little bit wrong, but the hidden aspect of our justice system that needs to literally be brought to the forefront because, at the end of the day, we all deserve justice and we also deserve truth and transparency. I don't want my wife to come home and tell me a lie, and I don't want our justice system to lie to us about what's happening within it either. It makes me feel the same way. I hate lies. And that's crazy because for a long time in my life, I was a good liar. Let me tell you, I was a good liar. It just first thing that came out of my mouth was a lie when someone asked me a question because I never wanted to share my truth. I never wanted to be me. I never wanted you to know my downfalls. I didn't want you to know my shortcomings, all of that. I didn't want none of that to come out. And now I hate lies. I hate it. I'd rather be brutally honest and pick up the pieces from the hurt that I caused with honesty because you can dust that off and you can fix that, but you can't fix a lie. You can't fix it. The trust is gone. So I definitely appreciate everybody that took the time to listen to me. And I'm going to let Robert and Swamp kind of wind down the show before we say our goodbyes. And I'm definitely appreciative of everybody that's been here, and I'm going to mute myself and go cry.
Robert, you go first.
That little girl in there, she is, she's my world. She was a miracle baby. She was born 3 weeks premature, couldn't regulate her own body temperature, couldn't latch onto a bottle. And she's going to be 10 this Sunday. So she's my miracle baby. She was when she was in the hospital. Yeah, my wife had her back in March of 2015. 3 days, got out of the hospital with 3 days later, we were back at the hospital with her because she couldn't latch onto a bottle. She couldn't regulate her own body temperature. And we were in the hospital for like almost 2 months with her. And my wife asked me one day, which kind of broke me down a little bit. Her mom would come up and relieve us, so I could go to, so I could go to work and my wife could go home and get some housework done. My wife asked me one day, and when we walked in the house, she goes, "Are we ever going to see home again?" That broke me because I couldn't answer. I couldn't answer that right away. I had to think of an answer, and all I could tell her was, "Yes, we will see home, eventually one day." And it was just, and then like 2 weeks would go by, and then another 2 weeks, and we didn't walk out the hospital for 2 months.
Oh my God. Was she
Yeah,
an incubator?
she for the first month she was in a incubator in NICU, and
Oh,
we I would we basically we lived at the hospital. I would go to work, because I worked third shift. I would go to work, and as soon as I got off work, I would go straight back to the hospital, and that was our routine for 2 months. That's how much my daughter means to me, and you know, people can make fun of me all they want on social media. People can call me a misinformation peddler, a grifter. The only thing I care about is justice for these victims and justice. And I think if that was my daughter, I would want real justice for my daughter. Sorry, I'm starting to cry.
I just, Robert, I love you very much. And I'm grateful that you opened up and you shared that. It makes, it makes me understand your bond with your daughter even more. And I'm so grateful. And I say prayers of of thanks that she's turning 10 this weekend and we can all celebrate that. And I just love the fact that I have found such an honest and justice-based group of people. You guys, I love you so much, and I can see your passion. And I do know, Robert, you've had a rough day, and there's people who have decided to critique you. And I just, I love having an example of how to be strong and how to move forward and keep creating content and brushing those negative, toxic people off in your life. In my life, we all have them. And just thank you for being an example for me. And, everyone.
I will say this. After what happened today, I've been, I will say this. After what happened today, I almost hung it up because that's how much it hurt. I try to do my best on this platform, put out good content. And that happens to me, call me a grifter and a misinformation peddler when this person doesn't know me, doesn't watch any of my videos, took a small little blurb off my video and used it to show the world how we really are. I almost hung it up today. Do you know who talked me out of it? That little girl in there. She goes, "Daddy," she says, "Daddy," she goes, "don't give up on justice."
Oh, I love you, Caitlin.
That and I knew Aaron would kick my ass if I hung it up.
Well, Robert, you bring so much to the platform, and I don't care what other people say. I think both of you have come to the understanding of where kind of how I work. And I want to let the community know that the three of us right here have bonded through the toughest of times, not always the best of times. The toughest of times are always the most honest and truthful. And we've been through the ups and downs. So everybody that watches us that thinks that this has been a perfect endeavor from start to finish, you have to understand this is what we call real life. We have stood together through very difficult situations, and we drive each other to be better. All three of us have considered leaving this platform at various times, and the three of us still come together and converse. And like Robert said, his little girl had words of wisdom for him to not leave for a very critical reason. And we each share that. We each drive each other. And, it's a very genuine relationship that you're seeing. When you see these three creators on screen, we've made the choice to do this individually, but we've made this choice to do it together as well. Because in my opinion, I can't speak for the two of them, but in my opinion, the three of us are stronger together than we could ever be singular on this platform. And that's not because we don't have the individual thought process or the capabilities to be content creators. But when you put the mesh together, the comfortability just grows. I feel more comfortable literally having these two by my side because I know they care. And I know they're focused on the very same things that I am. We care about our community. We care about all of you, all the people that tune in, whether you decide to be a member or a subscriber or you choose to not. That's okay. We're just happy you're here. We're happy that you're a part of this community. And, I'm probably one of the more vocal of the three, that I speak more than the other two here. But no, I listen to them more than I could ever speak to all of you. They share such wisdom and love with me that it keeps me straight and capable, along with my wife, who's a big part of this as well, and the little one that, is in Robert's life, and the family members that back this, all the way to our dogs and everybody else. This is real, guys. Like, this is legitimate. And we talk about this even after the live goes off the air. We talk and we stay and we talk outside of this. And Robert, I want you to know that I always support you. As you know, when this situation was brought up today, that you brought it to my attention, obviously, immediately, and we went to work on resolving it. And I know how painful it was for you, but we went to work immediately on resolving it, and it got resolved. And you're still here, and you're still fighting, and you're still using your voice, and you're doing amazing things. And Kiki, you're such an amazing person. And I'll say it before everybody's eyes and ears. The way that you have opened emotionally to help me, sacrificing your own self to literally help me better understand me. That's amazing, because that took sacrifice on your part. And I could never thank you enough for that. But just know that in front of everybody here, I would not be here without you. I wouldn't be here without Robert. I'm thankful. I'm blessed. And you'll forever be my family, even if I'm no longer on this platform or we part our ways on the platforms. You can't get rid of me as a brother. I'm always here with you guys, and I'm going to be loyal, and I'm going to stand with you through thick and thin. And I'm glad that we have such good members in our chat as well, because I have many of them that reach out, and I just want you guys to know I hear every one of your voices. I hear everything that you guys have to say, and I can't thank you guys enough. And I know we always get off topic when it comes to our lives and we get conversational, but we just love mingling with all of you. We love talking. We love discussion. We love the camaraderie. We love the family atmosphere. And we're appreciative of every single one of you that stops in. Even if you give me the finger at the end of the night when we go off, that's okay. You still gave me some love. So, if you guys want to finalize it up, I want to say my goodbye real quick. I appreciate it to every single one of you. Do look, more lives are planned. We've got some great content creators that are going to be working alongside of us, whether it be, individually or as a group. We do have some great shows coming up. We got more to discuss. And I'm just so appreciative. And guys, never hesitate to email me. Never hesitate to reach out in any way, discuss anything that's going on in your personal lives, whether you feel like I'm listening or not, just know I am. I'm going to say my thank yous. And then Kiki and Robert, I'm going to put myself on mute. I'm going to let you guys showcase and end the show. And then if you guys can hang out after the fact, we're going to say our goodbyes as creators. But thank you to the crowd. Thank you so much. I look forward to getting back up here in front of all of you, and we'll talk more, not only Idaho 4, but more cases as well. So you guys all have a great night. Love all of you. Good night.
I want to say thank you to everyone that was watching on my side, as well as on this side. I want to say thank you to Tell It to L, Charisma Craft, Trelly Balls. Just an awesome group of people. That wandered into my chat. I want to say thank you. I've been going more truth seeker route lately, as you guys know, and some of my views have took a hit because of it, but that's not going to deter me. I'm still going to be putting out good content, and I'm still going to be here supporting Kiki and AR, and my daughter means everything to me, and when she told me tonight, don't quit on justice, Daddy. I knew right then that someone was telling me something, not just her. I'm not gonna let all these haters and trolls get me down. I'm still gonna be plugging forward with my content, with my channel, and with doing awesome lives with AR and with Kiki and with whoever else decides to come up on panel. But just like Telltale L said, I needed this tonight. Truly, be sure to spoil that baby girl this weekend, Robert. Hang in there. I feel you. Be you. And that's just what I'm going to do. I'm going to be me. And I'm starting to cry again. Go ahead, Kiki.
Okay. Well, the first thing I want to say is, AR, you gave me an incredibly nice compliment, and it took me back. And I just thank you for saying those kind words about me. I feel the same way. You ground me when I talk to you. You guys, I call AR and have long conversations, and he talks to me about the business side of YouTube, and it's just incredibly helpful. I saw a comment in the chat about gratitude, and I think that's a great way to end the live stream. I think we're all expressing gratitude that we found a community. And Tanel Ray said, saying prayers before bed with a list of gratitude helps to think about, well, as you're going to sleep, you wake up renewed and, sorry, the chat keeps jumping, and a drive for energy to achieve those goals. So anyway, I just wanted to say something about gratitude. I'm so grateful for this platform. I'm so grateful to the viewers. I love all of you. The ones that commented, we love how you kept the energy in the live chat. You kept us on point with your comments and real-time fact checking. It's amazing. We love you, and we love the mods that showed up. I love all the viewers. Thank you. And even if you didn't comment, or you're part of the replay crew, or you're just lurking and you don't know what to say, we're happy to have you here. We're happy for all of you. So thank you so much. And I also want to say a special thank you to Tamara and Jen, your wives, for allowing you guys to come and spend all of this time on YouTube, spend all this time with me. I am so grateful. Thank you, Tamara and Jen. Thank you for this free time with your husbands for us to create this amazing content. So we love you guys. Shout out to YouTube wives and their channels or future channels.
My wife is so excited that you take up time. Trust me. She's like, go ahead, take AR, keep him for the next 8 hours. Just give me a break. But, we're
my wife too.
Yeah, it's just like, can you keep him for like the next week? I mean, I'm just wondering. So, very appreciative of everybody in here. Now, just before I let it go, I totally forgot because I was told I needed to do this. I am actually looking to add a few mods to my channel, as I do not have very many mods. my mods are typically on panel with me. So I don't really have a lot of mods out there. So if anybody that is not modding for Robert or for Kiki, because I'm not trying to get their mods unless, I'm not on panel with them. If I'm doing something outside of that, it would be great. But if anybody's willing or liking of the idea to becoming a mod and working with me, I would truly appreciate having a conversation. If you could just email me, send that over to convictsthoughts@gmail.com, and I would really enjoy having a discussion with you and seeing if anybody would be willing to help me out. So as for that, I don't have much else to say. Official, I'd be more than happy to have you, my friend. It was amazing to meet you the other night when you came in and you shared a part of yourself here. I really enjoy that. So I would definitely be talking with you for sure. And Tanel, I believe you're saying as well. So I'll definitely reach out to you guys, or you can reach out to me, and it would be great to discuss it with you. But guys, I'm a little tired, so I'm going to say my goodbyes. It was a great live again. Kiki and Robert, I'll talk to you in the backstage. I'm going to go ahead and send us off. Are we ready?
Thank you.
Nothing special in it.
Peace.
I can't do anything special other than hit end. Sorry. All right. You guys have a great night.
Take care, you guys. Bye.
Bye.